Greg, I've been pricing the heck out of spray foam for my house. And I've come up with some really competitive numbers.
Did those guys ever get back with you on that?
They didn't on the hangar, but on the house, yeah, it's 40% under the other bids that we had.
On your house?
Yeah.
Great.
And I forgot about the hangar, but tomorrow I'll call them and see what that is.
Okay.
So we get that project going forward.
Did you talk to the guy out of Ringwood? We were going to do some, and he had a real competitive price. But
Yeah, I might ask Greg.
have you talked to the guy out of Ringwood?
No, I didn't know there
I'll
was
try to
one.
find his name and talk to him. You may have found something better, but this guy seemed to have pretty spot on pricing. I'll try to run that up, bring it to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Was you there for Bud's funeral?
No.
What's the difference between requested and proposed? Did that work out okay?
Oh, man. Wonderful.
The last
Afterwards,
column.
Bill Marshall, he said, yeah, I was kind of worried about this
I don't know what these
He
terms
said,
mean.
man, this worked out great.
That's,
Everything really went smooth. And
That's what they asked for, and then that's what this
then the next
proposing
day,
is what
they had the
they're.
burial, we did the flyover, missing man.
Run the
That's-
lobby.
You know, both days.
My
were-
understanding-
Question is what they asked for and
The
proposed.
wind was blowing
Ask Joe
nasty
Don.
every day.
Joe Don,
Yeah,
under your columns, what's the difference between requested budget and proposed budget?
requested is what Greg brought to me and requested.
Okay.
Proposed is after I've gone through it. And
Taking out everything Greg wanted.
right.
I see.
And I have not had a chance to discuss it with Greg or Paul or anybody else. So.
Well,
But
we're kind of cold to be, it's come a short time to look it over.
yeah, well, it's snuck up on me, and it's
That's fine.
yeah.
So then actually, what are we voting on? Which one of these are we approving or disapproving?
In the discussion.
Okay. That answers my question, thank you.
So we're not looking for a vote today.
Well, there's the discussion and the recommendation. Number 7.
Well, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the airport board meeting to order. Corey, would you call roll, please?
Lael,
Yes.
Turner,
Here.
Kinsey.
Here.
Well, here we have quorum.
Recognition of visitors. We have Lynn Martin, Wayne Kinsey, Joe Don Dunham, and Arden Chafee. Item 4, to approve or disapprove the minutes of the previous meeting.
I move we accept the minutes.
Second.
Call roll.
Lael,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Washburn, yes. Okay.
Item 5, city council report. Gary?
I was absent last meeting.
The only thing that was really discussed, we haven't really discussed anything at council that I can recall that would affect anything going on at the board, at this board. We have discussed a few things as far as giving updates on the airport project, the runway project out here. Trying to get that wrapped up, but that's pretty much the same updates that this board's been given in the past. Right now, the biggest discussion items that will have an impact on this board would be budgetary planning for next year's upcoming budget, and that would be the biggest impact of what's been going on. We've had meetings all last month from different committees discussing budgetary items for everything from personnel to buildings. So that would probably be the biggest impact.
Any discussion on any additional discussions involving the potential annexation? In this area?
That is still undergoing, in process. I need to get a legal description of the airport put together so I can get that consent put together. And then we need to go through the zoning process to see how it would be zoned. And then we need to get letters out to property owners. And then at that point, it would be ready to be taken to council for some sort of action. You go through the legal actions, public hearings, and all that.
And in your budget planning for the next fiscal year, are the current annexation projects and future ones impacting that budget?
To a small degree, as far as
I don't know, as far as needing additional personnel in maintenance crews or fire department or police or anything like that?
fire and police department, no. Well, I shouldn't say no. Fire department, no. Police department, yes. Additional personnel. Street department, some additional personnel possibly needed. Not anticipating any additional personnel right now in water and sewer departments. But those would be the two main that would be impacted, would be the street and the police department.
If there's nothing else on that report, item 6, manager's report. Greg?
Thank you, Bob. The airport had another good month last month. Sales are steady, $31,816.33, which is up just slightly from March. Everything's been going pretty smooth as far as the instrument approach update. It's still in the FAA's waiting on approval. It's still under review. I did talk with Tom Nutter with Myers, and so he said there was one point that they had to add, so that might have slowed them down a little bit, but it's still awaiting approval from the FAA.
My goodness.
Red tape.
That's ridiculous.
Erickson Steel has finished construction on the equipment storage structure, and we've started utilizing that, parking the airport equipment. Still trying to get another person hired. And he's, I keep the call, find out what it pays, and that's pretty much the end of the conversation. Still trying. Michael can only work every other weekend, so I guess I'll be filling in until we get someone hired.
They have to raise our salary.
Mm-hmm.
We can't get anybody. We gotta cover it. If we don't cover it, we're gonna lose fuel sales, in my opinion.
Oh, you're right.
That's what you guys are offering now?
It starts at 8:21.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look at that. Everything else is going pretty smooth, isn't
Everything
it?
else is going smoothly.
I notice you're staying way ahead of the mowing.
Giving it our best.
Of course, it doesn't rain, so no grass is growing. Pretty
That's
easy
true.
this year. That it?
That's all I have.
All right. Item 7, discussion and recommendation for annual fiscal year budget 14 through 15. Jodon, you've been working with Greg on the budget.
Yeah, and as I've been going through the documents that I have passed out on to you, they are incorrect. Just so you know, so we won't be able to vote on that. Probably end up needing to have a special meeting to go over it.
Okay, what's incorrect?
Yeah, basically, the proposed budget column is incorrect. It's the same as last year's budget, which is not right. Do you still have the paperwork that I gave you, Paul? And I'll go over that, and then I'll get the right paperwork back out to you.
Is it this one you want?
To discuss, and I'll hit the highlights of what the changes were that I made. The requested column is what Greg requested, and we'll just go down through it just to give you an update, kind of line by line, and I'll tell you where I had made some adjustments. As far as the revenue is concerned, where I had made adjustments to the numbers Greg had put in there were, I'd left the hangar rent alone, so that's still in there at $26,000. I did reduce fuel by $50,000. My reasoning for that, down to $250,000. My reasoning for that was doesn't look like we're going to approach that this year. We did do it last year and the previous year, but we had helicopters in here, and to my knowledge, right now we don't have any of that going on.
Well, we do again.
Okay. Well, to my knowledge, we didn't have it, and that's the reason I reduced it $50,000.
Yeah, we picked up a helicopter again.
Okay. It doesn't look like we're going to approach the $300,000 mark in the revenues right now. It looks to me like we're going to be somewhere about a half to 2/3 of that. Licenses and permits, I didn't do anything with. That's a permit fee that we charge one of the.
I think that's for stags, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah. The interest amount I reduced down to 25. We left it alone. What we talked about. I don't know if Greg had that number. If I put it in there, but put it in there at 2508. Miscellaneous, left it alone. Leases, I left them alone also. That would have given my my revenue numbers at $427,620. As far as expenditures are concerned, I had done some initial calculations on those, and I figured next year with the possible increases that we have, we're going to be at about $63,829.
No, well, I'd like to ask that.
What's that, Paul?
I'm just curious, on your increases there, I mean, that's, well, I mean, taxes go up, insurance
Mhm.
goes up, and is that the pay scale increases also then,
Mhm.
that you're factoring in there? Okay.
Right now, the city is still considering a cost of living adjustment and figuring out how that's going to impact the budget. Some things that have come into my desk today that are not figured in this are increases in health insurance. We're looking at about a 12% increase in health insurance right now.
Okay.
And that is not figured in here yet.
I was curious because our current budget shows that we had figured 9,600. Our requested budget was 89. Our year-to-date actual right now is 71. Which of those three numbers is going to be most accurate, you think, for the next year? Then?
What do you say that again, Paul?
Well, I said you're looking at a 12% increase in health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Our current budget was $9,600. Our actual expenditures year-to-date is $7,100. And our requested budget for the next fiscal year is $8,900. So I'm just curious as to which of those three numbers of the actual, I don't know, projected out to June 1. Are we going to hit the 9,600? You think?
Health insurance
for
the airport is running about.
I didn't know if we was going to come in under or if we had an
We
extra
may be a little bit under that original.
under that 9,600.
But also that's taking into consideration what level of insurance employees take.
Okay. They have options on that.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I mean, the city. I mean, if it's employee only, city pays $150. I mean, it pays 100% of the cost of that. If it's employee family, for example, the employee pays $239 a month, and the city picks up the rest of that. If that's the case, next year, if it's full family, we'd be looking at a little over almost $1,300 a month. City's cost of insurance
For out here.
I'm not going to say for out here.
Oh, okay.
If it was full family,
Oh,
I don't know off the top of my head what kind of coverage.
Oh, okay. I understand. Okay, but I guess what I was getting at, roughly speaking, I didn't know how bad that 12% was going to impact us if we were coming in under budget this year, or if we were going to hit that 9,600 that we had budgeted.
We're probably going to be real close to that 9,600 once we have dental
Okay.
and everything else in.
So we wouldn't see a horrible increase out here then on that. Okay.
Our pension stuff has remained the same. Workers' comp is anticipated to remain the same as far as our comparisons for last year. Some of the other, some of the highlights, the gas and oil was requested at 250,000, and I dropped that down to 200 for the same reasons. I didn't figure we were going to be buying as much because the traffic was down from last year, just from the information that I had.
But we can amend the budget if things change.
Yes. Property maintenance was requested at, original request was at 50,000. We left that the same. That's where we have put the cost of the foam insulation on the hanger that we were going to do, the 25,000 roughly. So that's the reason that was increased from last year. Some of the other things I decreased slightly. Advertising request with 3,000. I amended that down to 2,000 for the main reason over the past 3 years. That's about all. That's the most we've ever spent. 1,800 in 11-12. Travel, left that at 3,000. Left that alone. Dues and subscriptions. It was asked for 550. I lowered it to 500 because that's the same as what it is this year. Because apparently we have not spent that much yet. Reached the budget. We reached that $500 budget figure yet, and doesn't appear that we're going to do it this year. Now, if there were some things there that I'm unaware of that we're going to increase, we may want to look at that. But that's the reason for that. Legal fees. There's $1,500 was what was requested. Not real sure what we anticipate using that $1,500 for. In 12-13, we used $275. In 11-12, we didn't use anything, and this year we haven't used anything. Anything that comes to me for legal fees, any legal actions that comes to me goes to the city attorney, which is already paid for out of a different line item, out of the city budget. So didn't quite know why we needed that, so I reduced that down to 0. Utilities were requested at $86.76. I bumped that back up to $9,500 because of increases and things that I'm sure were going to happen. Anticipating a 10% increase in insurance costs. So requested was $73.42. I've increased that to $10,367. Contingency has been left at $5,000. Catering left at $500. Professional services is at $8,125, and that's up from the request of. No, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong form. But professional services were requested at $5,000, left at $5,000. That's what we anticipate paying Garver for the next airport project that the ramp extension that we're working on right that we got slated to this upcoming year. One of the big decreases is in capital outlay in buildings. Requested was $350,000. I lowered that back down to this year's budget at $250,000. The main reason for me lowering that was my understanding that's what the CD is that we've got earmarked for that project. The equipment was requested at $63,484, and that's been left alone. And all that said and done, gets us to a budget deficit of $246,418, which is about the cost of the building that we have slated to be purchased out of CDs, the hangars. And that's the reason I've gone through and made some of those reductions and everything. And my reasoning for that. Trying to keep us as close to revenue expense neutral as we can, without drawing down too much of our reserves. We have about $350,000, I think, in CDs. But in my opinion, it would probably be not a prudent thing to do to draw down that full $350,000. By just drawing down the $250 that was earmarked, that what I believe was earmarked for hangars, T-hangars, that still leaves us a little bit in reserve, and basically budgets out the balance of our revenues for next year.
Now that, in your revenue, that was anticipating the current oil well at the same level of production, and it wasn't factoring in the second oil well, because we haven't received anything.
Yeah, we
off
haven't
of it
received
yet.
any revenues off that, and at this point, I'm comfortable with guessing at what that revenue might be. So leases we're left relatively the same.
Can I ask some questions?
Yes, sir.
Back on revenues, we're showing an increase of around in the hangar rents. Where's that coming from? Because the current budget year was $2,400 and actual is $22,335, and requested budget's $26. I was just curious where we were picking up the new revenue in the hangar rents.
From the hay barn.
Yeah, but I'm going off actual too, Bob. Actual is $22,335, $355.
That would be the request that was given to me.
Understand.
So, I mean, I didn't alter that any.
Understand. Do you know can you tell me where the new, I'm just curious. If actual rent coming in this year is $22,355, and we budgeted $24,000 in revenues, and next year anticipating $26,000, almost $27,000, where the extra money was coming from?
That's the only thing I can think of it was from the hay barn. Yeah, I might have misfigured that.
And the 22,355 is only year to date, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is year to date.
It's a little bit short of the full year.
Let me get my calculator out.
So we would have 3 months left on this. I mean, do we have 3 months left that's going to get us up to 27,000 or up to that level? I'm just curious.
April, we got 2 months. Would be 2 months, wouldn't it?
No, we go to June 30th.
May. Right, but this is as of April 30th.
Yeah, so you have May, June, July. Or sorry,
May
May
and
and
June.
June. I'm sorry, 2 months. So you have 60 days.
Yeah, well, that's that, but that would be right for the 2 months, 26/8/26.
26/8/26.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine.
With actual at 22,355 now, 26/8/26 would be the projected for the end of the year.
Right. Thank you. The grant match
Yep.
and then professional services,
Yeah.
those are two separate line items.
Mm-hmm.
The grant match would be for the same project,
Yes.
and that's to match whatever we get from the FAA.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 5,000
Is any additional fees, engineering fees we may have to pay that are not FAA reimbursed.
Okay, so that's like a buffer then?
Yeah.
That's not something that we know we have to spend then?
No, that would be the anticipating
The unknown?
the upcoming engineering fees that we would have to pay off of that grant.
I assume since you lowered it, you feel comfortable with a $5,000 contingency as opposed to 10?
Yeah.
Because at the time I think I came on the board right after they had the water pipe breakout here.
Well, I mean, the current budget's contingency was only $1,750 for this year.
It was?
That's what I got on my paper.
We had that 10,000.
It was 10,000. I thought it was always 10,000.
Yes.
I didn't bring my old paperwork.
Oh, well, it may have been originally 10,000, and then I probably what lowered it is I did some budget adjustments, moving some money around
Because right.
within the department this year.
It's 10,000 because after
Yeah.
An incident out here where we didn't have a contingency fund to handle an emergency, we established a contingency fund. So it's 5,000 enough to handle any kind of an
Well, it was
emergency?
enough to handle what happened in 11-12. We had a little over 5,000 there.
Okay.
Didn't have anything there this year. We have had some. Well, contingency got moved around into areas that were in the red earlier this in April. So based on that and the expected use of it this year is the reason it got moved. To other departments that were running, to other line items that were running short.
Okay. When you did you figure you planned in for any inspections or upgrades that might be required of us on the fuel pumps and
Well, we've got an upgrade on the fuel master today, but it didn't cost anything. And then the inspections on the fuel, Phillips 66 pays for that.
But as far as
I didn't figure anything in on inspections.
But you don't. But
I'm not aware
You're
of
not
any.
aware of anything coming up that would be unusual.
Right.
Okay. Other people can ask questions too.
I would welcome any questions.
Is there any projection on how long the helicopter is going to stay that's here now, or
That would be a great
August.
question.
through August?
August, something like that, last I've heard.
Is it
Through the end of August.
Is it Jet A or?
Yes.
What about the amount budgeted for salaries if we're thinking we're going to have to pay more for somebody to get somebody hired?
Well, that would be in the salaries number is increased for the the anticipation of a COLA, which would affect everybody, and then any other performance related any other increases that are related back to the performance review. But if we go much more than that, we're going to have to figure out where else we need to cut because we're already pretty much at almost at, you're running almost a zero budget now. It's not putting anything back in reserves for consumption later.
That's why I was concerned. It seems like we may need to allow for a little more in salaries if we're thinking it's going to cost more to hire somebody. And we might want to figure out what we can
What,
take from them to get there.
when we pay Greg overtime, what does that figure out per hour? I'm just wondering if we figure out how much overtime we're having to pay, at what rate, how much we need to raise our part-time employee's salary to get somebody,
Mhm.
and how much that would, what difference.
Good point. Yeah, I don't have that number in front of me, but
I think it's a little over $23 an hour overtime, time and a half. So, you could raise part-time guys' wages quite a bit and still save money paying the overtime.
I think that's, should be part of our
Mhm.
planning.
Where do you think it needs to be competitive at this point?
Well, you can start at McDonald's for $9 an hour. I think we'd like to have someone a little more skilled than what McDonald's is.
I agree with you.
We're not exactly flipping
Are you
hamburgers.
are you raising your hand? Are you volunteering?
I was gonna give you a figure.
Oh, I thought you was gonna work part-time after.
Well, I'm listening.
10-10.
I think 10's pretty realistic. We have trouble hiring anybody for even mowing the grass for any less than that.
I pay my cleaning lady 17.
Wow.
Then what are we gonna
They
increase?
work all the time.
What are we, how much revenue are we gonna, what revenue are we going to increase to accommodate that? We gonna go up on hangar rent?
no.
Go up on fuel cells?
Yeah.
That's about the only two you got.
Hopefully.
I mean, we're gonna have to raise the cost of fuel or raise the cost of hangar. Yeah,
Whole production.
I deal with this with the whole city on hiring. Gary sits in on the personnel committee. He's been through most of it with me, if not all of it. Our beginning salary for full-time workers is not but $10.17.
But I think it takes a little more intelligence to fuel one of these $5 million jets than it does to run a shovel. in my
Well,
opinion.
if we don't have somebody here on the weekend, our fuel sales will go down. If we have somebody here on the weekend, our fuel sales will stay strong. Yeah, he tends to pay for himself by being here.
But you're paying overtime too.
At 10 versus 23, that's quite a difference.
It's not just a straight $10 an hour.
It's $10.17 an hour.
Plus overtime.
Plus overtime. That's that if they earn overtime, the rates that go along with that are going to increase, which may not necessarily be all the rates for a part-time person.
Plus benefits, health insurance for full-time people.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Benefits for full-time people.
But I have I have a hard time with putting somebody on part-time for less than what a full-time guy starts at. But for more than what a full-time guy starts at. If that's the case, let's take everybody to part-time.
If we don't cover on the weekends, if we're wanting to sell Jet A and we don't have helicopters, these jets are going back and forth cross-country. We're located centrally in the United States.
I understand that.
They come in during the week and they get their Jet A. They come in on the weekend, there's nobody here, they can't get it. They're not going to come back during the week. We've lost them, period.
I understand
So
that.
it just depends on if we want to keep it open on the weekends
mean,
And sell a few.
I understand that.
Or lose.
I understand that.
Okay. I know where you're coming from. You gotta make up the money someplace. I understand.
You know, I guess the exception I would have to your comment about having somebody a little bit more skilled here, than it's not just running the shovel. You know, it's when the water system goes out, you want somebody pretty skilled there to fix that water system.
Well, I don't argue with you, but I could go through your whole group of employees, and I would say there was different skill levels that are required for different jobs.
And they're compensated differently, yes.
Yes.
And the 1017 is the beginning salary for any of our full-time workers. Right?
But I noticed that you have had ads in the paper for several weeks now for many positions that you have not filled.
There's water positions that have been open for 3 years.
So it just depends on where we want to go with what we're doing.
I agree. I mean, and you know, you can talk. I mean, well, any part of the city, we talk about raising salaries. We got to talk about how we're going to get the money to pay for that.
Sure.
And if that's going to be increased revenue, we're either going to have to increase our revenue to cover those costs, or we're going to have to decrease our expenses to cover those, reallocate those dollars for expense-wise. One or two things have got to happen.
It's not a huge number. We're looking at 16 hours a week. If you raise the salary $2, it'd be $2. A week. Not a big number.
Not for just here. But what's the impact of that for the rest of the city? I know that's not y'all's primary concern.
I don't.
I mean, I understand that's not your primary concern. But if I raise $2 here, I've got 86 other people.
But you don't have a different pay scale for different people?
Yes, I do. But all of those are on the same pay scale as what we're paying our people out here. Everybody's on the same pay matrix.
That can't be right. Or how would you be starting salary at 1017 and we're offering 812?
Yeah.
1017 for full-time personnel. Part-time personnel are less.
Do you have part-time personnel?
Yes, sir, I do.
And you pay them $8?
Yeah, yes, sir. That's about where they start at.
And we can't seem to find anybody at $8.
Look at the list I've got in the paper. We didn't have very much luck either.
Well, I know in visiting with city council members at one point, a couple of years ago, and different things, we were going through airport managers left and right. There may come a point in time when the airport pay scale has to be separate from the other city operations, because if you look, if you start comparing against other equivocal towns our size or larger or whatever, there comes a point in time when you can only afford to pay an airport manager X amount of dollars compared to what Guthrie's paying or Woodward's paying or what Enid's paying, and it's a different environment for that. That may or may not match what the city's doing, and what the city pay scale is, and they may trickle down also to what the part-time help does also. I mean, there may come a point in time when we are the size of Woodward. I don't know. You may have department heads that earn. I don't know what your highest pay level is in your pay scale right now. But you may have department heads that earn $60,000 a year. Or 70 or 80 or what. I don't know what that is, but it's there may come a time when we have to look at that in order to be realistic about the operations here, both when aviation is doing better economically than what the local economics may be, or if aviation's doing worse than what the local economics may be. Am I making sense at all on that?
Well,
Because I was surprised. When I came on the board, I was surprised that the airport system was tied in. I realized that. I guess I shouldn't have assumed anything. That the city is that they are considered city employees, but I was surprised that their pay scale was tied in with what the city was doing. I was surprised by that, because I can go out here and look at the jobs listed for airport managers, for airport help around, whether it be Mid-Continent, Tinker, Muleshoe, Texas, or whatever, and those pays, I think, from town to town are completely different than probably what the city pays some of their employees.
I look at the Oklahoma Municipal League does a annual survey for salaries across every city in the state that participates in municipal league. Except for a few exceptions, our salaries are competitive to the rest of the state.
I'm not familiar with our city's pay structure. Is there not a I know there's a starting for part-time people, like
Everybody's on a pay matrix.
But is there no adjustment for when you need somebody more skilled? I think that's why we were discussing that we need somebody more than just a
Okay. I haven't seen a job description that would say we need somebody more skilled. We're just saying we need somebody more skilled. More skilled than what?
I was just asking.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was a way
Our
to,
matrix
without
is-
complicating it for you. Is there a
Our
way to
matrix
flex
is
the rules?
based upon job descriptions, and the job descriptions are then compared at done before I got here. But our job descriptions were then taken and compared with other communities roughly our size and across the state. And then every job was plugged into a pay matrix. This job starts here, there's 12 steps to it, it ends here. This is the least it'll pay, this is the most it'll pay. And every job is that way. So in short of having a new salary survey done, we've been working with what we had done 4, maybe 5 years ago now. Now, that pay matrix does not relate back to our local, the local job pool. Woods County you talk about not having getting any applicants. Well, Woods County has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the state, at about 2.3%. Last time I looked. We're not going to compete with the oil companies paying $30 an hour for truck drivers.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
I use that in it as an example, but it filters on down to the part-time workers and everybody else.
To
Well,
me,
we're not trying to hire truck drivers.
No,
You know,
I understand that, and I just use that as, like I said, I just use that as an example, but that does filter down to
Okay.
every other employee in the city.
well, the city council made it very clear several years ago that they wanted this airport maintained 7 days a week. We can't figure out a way to do it, paying somebody $8 an hour. The board feels like we need to raise that salary. The person that's going to be here on the weekend, you know, he needs to be of the caliber to meet, greet, and refuel an airplane that may cost $10 or $20 million. And so that person, you know, needs to have a little more responsibility, maybe than the average person.
Be able to do it unsupervised.
Right. He carries a lot of responsibilities out here. Maybe so, you know, everybody's job is important. What we all think we do is important, and it is important. But the person that needs to do this is, I believe, another notch above, and we need to find that person and pay that person. You know, Michael that's working here now, this is more than a part-time job to him. I mean, that guy cares about this airport, and he is very good with our customers. And, you know, it's a little different than the city. Yeah, the city, the customers are the people from the city, and they need to be taken care of. And, you know,
The same level of care you're talking about needs to be the level of care that every employee of the City of Alva has
right,
for their job and their customer, because their customer is the ultimate
right.
person,
But
the citizen.
But it comes down to the city council made it clear they want this thing maintained, and we want it maintained. How do we do it?
Raise a hangar rent.
And that's why we need more revenue.
You need $1,600 a year.
But wait a
And-
second.
and you said
that
it-
actually doesn't-
$1,600 a year. Are we going to cut anything else out? I mean, right now we're nearly using every bit of our revenue. Next, we're anticipating using every bit of the revenue nearly we will collect next year.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about two separate issues. Even say the revenue was far in excess, you're saying that it complicates the city's pay scale, which isn't solved by us making more revenue. It still
No,
doesn't change the pay
that's,
scale.
the city needs more revenue. I mean, the city is, I mean, I right now I'm looking, I have gone through everybody's budget. The current budget numbers reflect about a $750,000 deficit
But
for next year.
But if we theoretically, if we raise hangar rent and create the revenue, do you still have a problem with raising the minimum or part-time pay scale?
I still have issues with it because of
Right.
the effect that it has across the board.
So we still have to solve that first before we really need to
Well,
worry
but
about the
By
revenue.
raising hangar rent, you're going to decrease your customers.
Well,
Well,
but
but
it
I'm
won't
just
solve
saying
our problem.
theoretically.
But it
I
won't
mean,
solve
it's-
our problem anyway, because we're still, the issue is the pay scale. I mean,
Yeah, but I'm saying you raise hangar rent,
right.
you run off your customers, then you don't need somebody here on the weekend.
Okay, if we're paying $23 an hour for overtime,
You're still up against the pay scale.
pardon me?
You're still up against the pay scale.
So far this year,
But I don't understand why we're,
through April this year, we've only paid $550 in overtime.
okay,
So, I mean, you talk about the amount of money that he would make in overtime, but we haven't paid that on a consistent basis. We've paid $550 out of a $2,000 line item budget.
Because
okay,
I've been out here covering the airport on the weekends for free.
that's right. And if we don't cover it on the weekends, go to Moreland and look at the nice airport they got there that nobody uses. They don't have anybody. In their city, they have police protection, they get grants, but they have no, I don't see how they have to be, they're not revenue neutral, they're in the hole, and most airports are.
Citywide, it's citywide governmental entities, statewide rather, governmental entities have to have a zero-based budget. They cannot be, they cannot be over budget.
If we're talking about
And So if they are operating their airport at a loss, their airport is getting funded from somewhere else through transfers.
But I want to get back to this. I don't understand how we're locked into the city's pay scale. I don't understand it. I mean, if I'm trying to think, if I'm a lawyer or if I work for McDonald's, they're private entities, but still, your pay scale is, as you said, was based on the amount of responsibility or the position or the skill that's required. You don't have any airport people in the city. Now, I mean, I just don't understand why we're locked in to your pay scale at the lowest number. 'Cause, that's the way I understand it, where you're coming from. Or maybe I misunderstand.
Well, it's not the lowest number on the pay scale, but it is one of the. It is the. It is one of the lower numbers. Yeah, I will agree with that. But the pay scale, the pay matrix, is based upon job descriptions and responsibilities, and at whatever time and whoever did it, when they went through it and they said this job description is worth this much money.
Who says that?
It was done before.
I don't know who did the. I don't
It
know
was
who
done
did the
before
last.
He said it was done like 5 years ago.
I don't know who did the last pay matrix.
I see.
I don't know who did the last salary survey. I know that I compare it every year as I go through and I look at different jobs in the city to see how we rank among other cities. I look at that every year.
Well, perhaps we need to rewrite our job description.
That would go a long way to help to making things, different for you.
And I think we might take a look at our revenue on the weekends and the difference between, we can't work correct 7 days a week. I mean, we've got to have
I don't
something.
disagree with that.
Is there, on your part-time scale, is there 1, 2, 3, part-time 1, 2, 3 scales? No.
Pretty much no. It's part. We have broken some of them out as far as part-time airport assistants. Nobody starts at the grade level 1. We don't use it. Everybody starts at a 2.
What are the 1, 2, and 3? Do you know what the starting is on part-time?
Not off the top of my head, no, I don't.
So is it, as sitting with Joe Don on these and being on the budget as a council member, are you in agreement with Joe Don that if our part-time help was paid differently than what the city was, that would be detrimental throughout the city?
Well, I don't know how it was years ago, but this started happening, I think, when Gerald was out here. His pay matching the supervisor's pay. I mean, it's way out of kilter. Remember when that happened?
Mm-hmm.
That's when all this started. And when the city started paying airport manager and the part-time instead of the airport doing it. If you see what I'm saying. This all happened back when Gerald was here.
Mm-hmm.
When everything got on a level playing field with the city employees. And this is what's happening.
Well, if we raised to $2 an hour, could somebody figure out how much more we would need in the budget for the year?
We wouldn't need any more. You said 250 is revenue neutral. We're at negative 246. 2,000 more would still be virtually neutral.
We're negative. We're in the hole right now, $246,000.
But
It-
that's
it-
because of
If we
the
can,
hangar.
That's right.
So you need to take that 250 back out,
So then we've got a positive number of what?
$4,000.
$4,000
Mhm.
We're talking about spending less than two.
for salaries.
Yeah.
And then you got to figure in that also incremental increase in taxes and Social Security and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And the point, I guess it comes back to the point that I want to. One of the points I really want to is you're still not putting anything back for future unexpected expenditures. I mean, our budgets right now do not reflect any kind of capital reserve, or emergency reserve.
I thought that we had 5,000 for that.
Huh?
I thought we were talking about that earlier. We had 5,000 for that.
No, you got it. You're budgeting $5,000 for contingency expenses.
Isn't that emergency?
That's not reserve money. That's not the money that ought to be set back for emergency reserves. If something comes through here and causes a major disaster, that's when your emergency reserves are going to kick in. Your we ought to be building our emergency reserves to be about 16% of our annual operating budget.
Well, I don't think the $2,000 salary is going
Right.
to. And
I think we're covering a lot of topics here, which is fine, but I think those problems we probably agree with. This issue is not affecting them to any major degree. I mean, we're talking about a pretty small amount of money. The only thing that I agree with you on is if it affects the whole city's pay scale, we need to either rewrite the job description or something where it makes it okay. But I don't think it's not a revenue issue or a budget issue.
Are there any other part-time employees for the city that work unsupervised? Would that make a difference in
Well, I
the
mean,
pay scale?
Yeah, we've got part-time employees that work unsupervised. I mean, without a direct supervisor standing over them.
Mhm.
I mean, nobody is unsupervised. Everybody in the city's got
Well, yeah,
somebody
certainly.
supervising them.
Right.
That's probably what you should try and do, is rewrite the job description.
What are the options? I mean, as you see it, I mean, is 812 all you think is possible without changing something, or is there other? Because I'm not familiar with what the different levels of entry-level pay for a part-time person for the city is. But apparently there were 3 levels of that, and I mean, I don't know what all those numbers are. I mean, say we didn't go to 10. Is there a 9.25? Is that, I mean, somewhere, is there something more than the 8 that we can pay without getting to 10 that would satisfy you?
I don't know that it's not that you're not satisfying me. It's just I want to point out all the issues there, and it's not as clear as it's not as clear as just raising a salary for one person or for one job. I mean, I'm not dissatisfied for anything. I'd like to be able to pay all our employees more.
Sure.
That's our current job description.
Well, based on our budget, we technically, Greg, you can't be putting in overtime, working weekends.
If you put in the job description something to do with the fueling aircraft and without someone watching over him, put that in the right wording.
It's in there. fueling aircraft, pulling them in and out of the hangar.
For part-time?
Mm-hmm. Everything I could think of, mowing, weeding, running a chainsaw. Fueling aircraft, greeting customers, answering the phone.
Yeah, but it's when that, the guy comes in and takes on 300 or 500 gallons of fuel at $5. He just brought the airport in $2,000. And he'll come back.
Good example is the helicopter crew that comes in. They come in on the weekends and they get 300-400 gallons.
That
If
more
nobody's-
than pays.
Nobody's here, they
They're not
can't
gonna
get
do
it.
That's right. That man has to know what he's doing. I wouldn't have a clue on how to fuel a helicopter. How does a Jet A pump?
I mean, our part-time guy is very important. He's almost an assistant manager.
Well, he is a manager when the manager's not here.
Exactly.
Maybe that's what we need to add to the job description to make the difference.
That's right.
It's a good point.
Maybe it should be labeled something different than part-time help altogether. Maybe you should throw the part-time help out the window and label it something else.
Backup manager or something.
But when you leave that name, do you get into other complications?
Hmm?
But if you leave the part-time moniker, do you get into other issues then with taxes and benefits and stuff like that?
I think the definition of part-time is a certain number of hours.
36
Okay.
hours. Can't work over 36 hours a week.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the only definition then?
You can throw the part-time labeling out of the mix.
Label, call it manager's assistant or something like
Exactly.
that. Joe, on how much could the part-time be raised without causing repercussions? Or if it were raised any amount at all, will it cause repercussions?
I think when you start raising one class of employee and not the entire, and you're singling out one class of employee to raise, you're going to have repercussions throughout the other classes. They're either going to, well, I'm just as important as that guy. Why are they not doing it for me? I'm going to quit and go somewhere else. Which they may be doing that, they may be doing that anyway. They may be quitting and going somewhere else anyway. But when you start raising it for one class and you don't do it for all classes, then you run into, I think you have the potential there for long-term problems.
Well,
Get the potential there, but we definitely have a problem right now. Not having the guys, a big problem for us.
And to me, that, it's no different than my water department that's been down 3 guys for 3 years.
We're not in charge of the water department. Though.
Well, but I am.
I understand. I'm only worried about my job. I'm just saying, I'm just worried. This is the board I'm on. This is the one I'm
Right.
worried about.
I understand. I understand that, your main concern is the airport. My main concern is the city of Alva as a whole.
now classes, I guess I don't understand classes. I understand jobs, different types of jobs. I don't understand what
Well,
classes are.
You pick out one job
Mm-hmm.
and do this for one job. What about every other job inside the city of Alva? Or inside, and I know that's not your concern, but every other job is going to, why haven't they done that for me?
It's a different job.
And I guess what makes the part-time or the airport position job any more important than the part-time job that's in the water well field that generates $1.2 million a year?
Well, how about the guy that,
Or the trash guy that picks up the trash that generates $1.3 million a year?
that one man doesn't generate $1.3 million a year? I would
No.
think that,
But does
are you gonna
but-
pay the guy, does the guy in the water field and the trash man make the same money because they're in the same class?
Yes,
They do.
yes.
And
If at certain levels they do. A water level 1, street level 1, sanitation level 1 are all the same job class. Are all the same pay scale. And 2s and 3s correspond there with it.
I sure would pick out the easiest department then, if I was gonna make the same money. I wouldn't, well, that's enough of that, I guess. But anyway, I don't understand it. I think we ought to put it on the agenda and raise
Well,
the
we
salary.
need to have a.
Opportunity.
We'll need to. I mean, I'm not going to ask for a vote on this one because you don't have the correct information. But we will need to have a special meeting because I've got to get something nailed down because we have to start the legal process of the budget first part of June. There's certain
Well-
legal deadlines that we have to meet, and
Get us the new numbers and let me
I
know.
need to get you the new numbers.
Yeah, these numbers
this
aren't
is my
right.
fault. I got you the wrong numbers. I apologize for that.
Give me the numbers and I'll call a meeting and vote on it.
Okay.
And we'll visit some more about weekend help.
Could we put pay scale for part-time help on that special meeting also? To come up with a raise or not a raise?
Yeah, let's get that.
I think we need to address it one way or another as soon as possible.
Okay, let's move on. Gentlemen, I'd like to come out and visit with you sometime. Item 8, remarks and inquiries by airport board members. If none, number 9, remarks and inquiries by citizen guests. Yes, sir.
We had a meeting today, and Paul, they were talking about doing a community calendar and those little A-frame advertisers that go on the tables at the restaurants, and they want all activities in the community turned in to the chamber office, and that would include your fly-ins and other activities that might take place at the airport. We don't want to leave anything out.
And they need those
Completely
numbers for the
forgot
quarter.
about that darn meeting. I was supposed to go to that. I'm sorry.
They need the numbers for the quarter if we can get all the
Numbers for the what?
for the next 3 months. They put
Oh.
a 3-month calendar at a
Oh,
time.
I see what you're saying. Who takes that? What
I
person?
can take it for you. Alex Mance.
So just come see you and give it to you?
If you want, or Alex Mance is who I'm going to give it to. So, all right, you can give it to her directly.
Gosh, I forgot that.
Oh, and I also wanted to say that on the council agenda, the council approved the recommendation of the planning commission for the zoning of the Cedars and the land, the 580 some acres that was annexed out east of town. So that's all been zoned.
Next on the list.
If you want to be.
You're up.
I'm happy to see all the discussion in regard to the personnel, because of my observations, that's one of my main concerns. And it isn't going to be easy. It's going to take a lot of creative thinking to solve that, and probably a little more money. But one area that you might consider is, let me back up a minute. It's important that this building and the surrounding area here be staffed, say like 8 to 6, 7 days a week, to whether a person's driving in or flying in, there's a friendly face there to greet him. Or like you mentioned, if there's no one here and somebody stops for gas, he's not gonna stop again.
That's right.
And another problem that we have always had is we expect the Unicom needs to be answered, because if a guy's scooting along 10,000 feet and it doesn't answer, he isn't gonna stop for gas. But yet you can't do that down here on the track and on the grass. So there's gotta be a solution somewhere for that, as some kind of a patch-in deal from the Unicom to something stuck in his ear or something, to where we could cover that, because I know that we do lose some business that way. But the first choice is to have someone capable of wrestling the hoses, fueling the jets, and all of that. The next choice is there being a warm body here with a smiling face to greet whoever comes in, and then if it's beyond their capability to be able to grab that person, rather than the stranger coming in trying to figure out where he's going to grab somebody because there ain't nobody around. And one thing that you might give some thought would be on your retired people. There's surely some around that want some spice in life besides sitting there watching TV and wouldn't be adverse to picking up a few bucks. And if you carry that another step further, I wonder if there isn't a lady or two in this town that would be tickled to death to spend some time right here in this building and could probably add to the housekeeping of it. Not that Greg doesn't do a good job, but the woman's touch is a little different. And then also spare time sew and knit for grandkids. You know, I used to get when I worked out here, I got my lessons out here while I was watching the airport. But it's a problem. I was, a few Sundays back, I was through here, and there was a couple guys walking down along the hiring line. They stopped and they said, we need an air tank, and we can't find anybody that's around. And so came down here with them, discovered there were 5 airplanes around the gas pump. And the guys were shoveling them, pushing them around, gassing themselves, and didn't seem to be complaining about that. That they all had Emory-Riddle Aviation out of Tulsa on them, which is a flight school. And a lot of times those guys would go in groups, and there were several of them that land here, and they liked this airport and the terminal and accommodations. But here they had a low tower on an airplane, and nobody inside to get a tank from. Now, even if there had been a lady here, she could have called somebody to get out here and get them an air tank. And that would be better than the place just sitting open like as though nobody cared.
Well, Gray has posted, his number or my number on the front door.
Okay, I asked him if they called any number. He said, well, there was 2 on the front door. He said one didn't answer and the other said they was out of town. So what happened there, I don't know.
I don't know.
But I would say, and not anything against Greg, but when the airport board hires somebody 30 miles out of town, they need to be prepared to have someone local for instant response, because you can't expect him to do the 30-mile dash in here on a moment's notice. Years and years ago, I got a call at midnight from the FAA. They said, Wayne, would you go out to the airport and look for such and such an airplane, tell us if it's there or not. Said, we've had one go down off the north end of Wiley Post, and we think it's from your airport, but it's so foggy we cannot find the airplane. So I came out here and looked, and I can't tell you how I felt when the hangar door was open and the airplane was not there. But that's, they didn't want to wait 30 minutes on somebody to round up. They wanted an instant response. And there's things that the airport, to be properly run, needs that response. We all agree we've got a terrific airport, a terrific investment in making and keeping it nice. But if we don't staff it, well, one other far out example, years and years ago when TG&Y was kind of closing down, well, I used to run around the corner and go in the side door to TG&Y if I needed something. Well, they locked that door so that everybody had to come in the other end so that they wouldn't have to have a cash register or person at that door. Well, I said, the heck with it, I didn't go back. I know that sounds silly, but
That's the way it is.
Human nature.
That's what Terry's been saying. He's exactly, both
Yeah.
of you are right.
Yep. Thank you for letting me butt in.
Appreciate it.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Sitting here listening to all this. I don't know what kind of governmental change it would take to pull the airport from the City of Alva's control and make you more like Share Medical Center. Because if Share Medical Center had to pay the pay scale that Joe Don has outlined, they'd go down the tubes. And this is sort of a separate business, much like Share Medical Center. And if you could extract yourselves through the proper legal changes where you run it like a business and not be tied to a pay scale that the city is tied to, you might be able to solve your problem.
Good point, man. Why are you thinking? Okay. Well,
Not relative to this, really, but can I have another 10 seconds?
you bet.
It was 65 years ago that I rode my motor scooter out here to this airport with $80 in my pocket. The airport manager relieved me of my $80. Before that, I got 10 hours instruction in Veronica Chant. It's the same Veronica Chant that sits down there in my hair now. But I did not realize at the time that my life would evolve around the airport. And I've been very grateful for it.
Well, yeah, like you said, we've got a lot of positive things that have happened out here. We've got one little issue that we're addressing, and that's why we've had so much discussion here the last 30 minutes. We're not going to solve that problem tonight, but we all need to go home and think about things and work towards solving this issue. Because we do have a new runway, beautiful terminal building, great hangars, good people. Greg's been an excellent manager. We just got a weekend, every other weekend situation that we need to get addressed. And some ideas that came out, so let's work forward on that. If there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.